What would you do if the justice system failed your child? How far would a mother's love drive her to go? On March 6, 1981, in a quiet German courtroom, one mother answered these questions with 8 gunshots that would echo through history. Hi everyone, welcome to Humanity Tales. Today I'm sharing a powerful story about a mother's love and justice. Before I begin, take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Join our community where real stories touch real hearts. A mother's love knows no bounds. It can move mountains, cross oceans, and sometimes it can cross lines that forever change lives. On March 6, 1981, in a quiet courtroom in Lübeck, Germany, this truth would be demonstrated in a way that would shock the world and spark a debate that continues to this day. Marianne Bachmeier walked into that courtroom carrying more than just her handbag. She carried the weight of unbearable grief, 7 months of sleepless nights, and a decision that would define the rest of her life. The clock had just struck 10 a.m. and the morning light filtered through the high windows of the Lübeck District Court. Nobody paid particular attention to this grieving mother as she took her seat among the spectators. This is not just a story about revenge. It's not merely a tale of justice or injustice. This is a story about the depths of maternal love, about pain that defies description, and about a moment that would challenge society's understanding of justice and morality. Before we witness the events that unfolded in that courtroom, we need to go back. Back to when laughter filled a small apartment in Lübeck. Back to when a little girl named Anna Bachmeier still had her whole life ahead of her. Anna Bachmeier was 7 years old in 1980. Like many children her age, she loved ice cream on summer days and collected colourful hair ribbons. Her mother Marianne would later describe her as sunshine in human form. She had her mother's eyes and an infectious laugh that could brighten even the darkest days. Life wasn't always easy for the single mother and daughter, but they had each other. Marianne worked extra shifts at local businesses to provide for Anna, often juggling multiple jobs. Despite the challenges, their small apartment was filled with love, dreams, and the kind of hope that only a child can bring into this world. Every morning, Anna would insist on wearing her favourite red coat to school, even as it grew too small for her. She'd wave goodbye to her mother with a smile that Marianne would later say haunted her dreams. They had their routine, breakfast together, a walk to school, and promises of afternoon stories. Anna was not just Marianne's daughter. She was her purpose, her future, her reason for pushing through life's hardships. In the working-class neighbourhood where they lived, they were known as the inseparable pair. The mother who would do anything for her daughter, and the daughter who brought light into everyone's life. May 5th, 1980, started like any other day. Anna put on her red coat, ate her breakfast, and headed to school. She had a math test that day, and she'd studied hard for it. "I'll make you proud, Mama," were her last words to Marianne that morning. Neither of them knew these would be the last words they would ever share. When Anna didn't return home that afternoon, Marianne felt the first tremors of fear that would soon become her constant companion. She called the school, then neighbours, then friends. Within hours, the streets of Lübeck echoed with calls of Anna's name as neighbours joined the search. Days turned into weeks of agony. Missing posters with Anna's smiling face appeared on every street corner. Marianne barely slept, barely ate. She walked the streets until her feet bled, looking for any sign of her daughter. The police searched, the community searched, but the truth, when it finally emerged, was more horrific than anyone could have imagined. On May 16, 1980, they found Anna's body. She had never made it to school that day. Instead, she encountered Klaus Grabowski, a man with a history of violence against children. He had lured her into his home, committed unspeakable acts, and taken her life. The community's hope turned to horror, then to rage. When police arrested Grabowski, he confessed. His words in custody would later fuel a fire of public outrage. He claimed Anna had tried to blackmail him, a statement so absurd it only deepened the community's disgust. This man, who had previously been convicted of similar crimes, had been free to walk the streets, free to destroy an innocent life. For Marianne, the world stopped turning that May. The apartment, once filled with Anna's laughter, became unbearably quiet. Her daughter's red coat still hung by the door, waiting for its owner who would never return. Each morning she woke to the crushing reality that this wasn't just a nightmare. This was her new normal. The justice system moved slowly, methodically, with a coldness that seemed to mock her grief. Grabowski's trial was set for March 1981. For 7 months, Marianne watched as lawyers prepared their cases, as the system processed paperwork, as her daughter's death became a matter of legal procedure rather than human tragedy. She attended every preliminary hearing, sitting silently in the back of the courtroom. Those who saw her there would later recall her unusual composure, not realizing they were watching a volcano preparing to erupt. She listened as lawyers discussed evidence, as they debated legal technicalities, as her daughter's life was reduced to case numbers and legal precedents. Each night she would return to the empty apartment, to Anna's untouched room, to the silence that screamed louder than any sound she had ever heard. The community's support, though well-meaning, couldn't penetrate the depths of her isolation. How could anyone understand what it meant to lose not just a child, but your entire future, your reason for being? As the trial date approached, something changed in Marianne. Those close to her would later say they noticed a new kind of calm settle over her. Not the calm of acceptance, but the quiet that comes before a storm. March 6, 1981 dawned cold and grey in Lübeck. The courthouse was filling with the usual morning crowd, lawyers shuffling papers, court officials preparing for another day of proceedings. The third day of Klaus Grabowski's trial was about to begin. Marianne Bachmeier entered the courthouse carrying a purse that concealed a Beretta pistol. Her face, as witnesses would later recall, showed no sign of the devastating decision she had made. She took her seat among the spectators, just another face in the crowd of Germany's most watched trial. As Grabowski was led into the courtroom by guards, Marianne remained still. He walked past her just a few feet away, the man who had destroyed her world. The proceedings began as they had the previous 2 days, with legal formalities and procedural matters. Then, in a moment that would be forever etched in German legal history, Marianne stood up. She raised the Beretta and fired. 8 shots rang out in quick succession. 7 of them found their target. Klaus Grabowski fell, fatally wounded. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Guards rushed forward, lawyers ducked behind their desks, spectators screamed. But Marianne stood motionless, the gun still in her hand. When security finally reached her, she offered no resistance. "I wanted to kill him," she said simply. "He killed my daughter." The shooting transformed Marianne Bachmeier from a grieving mother into a figure of national controversy. Some called her a vigilante, others a hero. The German media dubbed her the Revenge Mother, while public opinion split between those who condemned her actions and those who understood them. Her own trial began in October 1982. The prosecution charged her with premeditated murder, arguing that carrying the weapon to court showed planning and intent. Her defense team painted a picture of a mother driven to the edge by grief and the failure of the justice system to protect children like Anna. The courtroom that had witnessed her act of vengeance now witnessed her own judgment. But this time, Marianne spoke. She described the endless nights after Anna's death, the pain of packing away her daughter's things, the torment of knowing her child's killer might one day walk free again. "I didn't shoot at the man Grabowski," she testified, "but at what he did to my daughter." Her words resonated far beyond the courtroom walls, touching a chord with parents across the nation and sparking debates about justice, vengeance, and the limits of maternal love. The verdict in Marianne's trial came on March 2, 1983. The court sentenced her to 6 years in prison for manslaughter, a notably lenient sentence that reflected the jury's understanding of her circumstances. In the end, She would serve only 3 years before being released for good behaviour, but the story of Marianne Bachmeier had already become something larger than a criminal case. It sparked a national conversation about child protection laws in Germany. Questions that had long been whispered were now shouted. Why were convicted child offenders released without adequate supervision? How could the system better protect the most vulnerable? The German media followed Marianne's every move, even after her release. She became a symbol, though of what depended on who you asked. To some, she represented the failure of the justice system to protect both victims and their families. To others, she was a cautionary tale about the dangers of taking justice into one's own hands. The case led to significant reforms in how Germany handled cases involving crimes against children. Lawmakers were forced to re-examine sentencing guidelines, parole conditions, and rehabilitation programs. Anna's death and Marianne's actions had exposed deep flaws in the system that could no longer be ignored. Marianne Bachmeier passed away in 1996 at the age of 46, having spent her final years in relative seclusion. She had moved to Sicily, seeking escape from the notoriety that followed her in Germany. In her last interview, she spoke not of revenge or justice, but of Anna, of summer days and ice cream cones, of red coats and morning goodbyes. Today, the story of Marianne Bachmeier continues to resonate. It appears in legal textbooks and ethical debates, in discussions about justice and moral boundaries. But perhaps its most powerful legacy is as a testament to the fierce, uncompromising nature of maternal love. The courtroom in Lübeck still stands, its halls now quiet. But within those walls, the echo of 8 shots still reminds us of the complex intersection of love, justice, and morality. It challenges us to ask ourselves, what are the limits of justice? What are the boundaries of love? And sometimes, most troublingly, can we ever truly separate the two? In the end, this remains a story of a mother and a daughter, of Anna, who loved her red coat and morning walks to school, of Marianne, who carried both unspeakable grief and an unshakable love. It's a story that reminds us that justice and vengeance may speak with different voices, but sometimes in the depths of a parent's heart, they whisper the same words.